We hear every day on the news about challenges with the state budget, whether it's layoffs, furloughs, or schools closing. And who better to give us the lowdown on what's happening with the state budget, GeorginaKawamura, who's the Director of Budget and Finance. She's the state's top expert in finance. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. Well, I figured this is a good opportunity. You've been in the news lately.
And not of my choice,
yeah,
but
not
yes.
of your choice. And then you are always in the hot seat at the legislature. You're always there testifying about the budget and what could be spent and not spent and how things are doing. But tell me a little bit about your background first so people know who GeorginaKawamura is.
Well, thank you. I was born and raised on Lanai. Not many people know that. I've spent a good part of my years, though, living on Maui. And I worked for the County of Maui for 24 years. And the last 8 years of that as budget director for then Mayor Linda Lingo. And when she got elected to be our governor, she asked me to join her cabinet. So I did, and it's been very fortunate and I think a fulfilling job to have that opportunity again to be responsible for our fiscal strength, our fiscal stability. It's an overwhelming position, absolutely, but again, fulfilling at times.
You seem pretty calm despite all the challenges ahead. But when you came into, or when the governor came into office, you first came in, the state was pretty healthy, right? Financially.
Well, when we first took office, again, we took basically a budget that had been prepared by then Governor Cayetano, and for the Governor Lingo then to submit it to the legislature. So we did speak to the legislature and say during the course of that first session, we would be coming down with amendments because there are things that we obviously agreed with and some that we didn't. At that point, there was some structural imbalance, I want to call it, because they did use the Hurricane Relief Fund, if you recall, to balance the budget at that time, and meaning the entire amount of about $180 million was used. Governor's first task to me was, okay, we're not going to use that, so we have to go look at other means to cover that shortfall, obviously, which meant that we begin our work to reduce the budgets of every department. I mean, when you don't have money, that really is the first thing you should be doing.
Right. Now, why didn't, give us a lowdown on why didn't the governor want to use the Hurricane Relief Fund?
And again, she's always wanting to protect it. I think our entire time here, our entire term, she's been very sensitive to that fund and not wanting to use it because when we need it, she wants it to be available. It's not if, but when. So it's a preservation of that fund, and that's been her edict, I guess, the whole time we've been here.
So fast forward today, you had your challenges in 2003, I guess, when it was, but you know, the state has seen kind of a boom in tourism, and now with the recession, if that's what you want to call it,
right.
You know, the state's been struggling, I know, with between the legislature and the governor and in some cases the unions. How should the money be spent? So what is exactly the state of the budget today? How do you see it?
Well, that's an interesting discussion, again, when you talk about the two, I call them both challenges, is managing a budget when you have money and managing a budget when you don't. And to me, when I look at it, you're doing the exact same thing in both cases, and that is managing people's expectations. Because when you have money, everyone thinks that they should have a, excuse me, a piece of that pie. I mean, and they don't realize that every one of them, when they ask for their piece, we could probably be baking 10 pies. So managing people's expectations in that case, and then now when we don't have money, they still expect there's a constituency for every dollar that's in the budget. So while some will recognize, oh yes, we know, you know, it's in a fiscal crisis and yes, there's no money, but you're really not going to take our money, right? So again, you're managing their expectation. They think to go take it from somewhere else, but we expect to still have ours. So again, it's that challenge. Everyone will come in. Everyone who has an appropriation that the legislature has provided expects that they'll get that money. But you have to realize that the legislature prepares a budget based on estimates. When the estimates don't get fulfilled, when we don't get the cash to back up those estimates.
From tax revenues.
From tax revenues, you can't spend it.
Right.
So again, people, expectation, they expect, they have an appropriation, so they say, but the legislature gave us money. They didn't give them money. They gave them an expectation that if we had the cash coming in, perhaps you could spend this for your program.
So sometimes you have to be the bad guy.
Oftentimes, yes.
Because you have to say, I'm sorry, the money didn't come in, right?
Yes.
And we can't appropriate yet if at all. Maybe.
And again, it's that message, yes, if things were different, if the economy were different, if we had tax revenues, maybe, we could accommodate this appropriation. We just can't.
So how big is the state budget?
Well, when we were doing well, the general fund budget was about $5 billion.
A year?
A year. We're down to about $4 billion a year. So it's a major shift in, again, expectations.
Right.
We're not bringing in the kind of money that we were before, and we just have to manage better. I mean, we all do it in our household when we know that, someone's hours are cut or, bringing in the money to the household, so we have to adjust. Exactly what we have to do.
So in terms of a shortfall, we keep hearing the legislature talk about a shortfall. So how big is that shortfall? Is it about $1 billion?
Yes, right now. If nothing were done with regard to, again, reducing our expenditures, that's exactly the amount of our shortfall. So we have to do that. There's two sides of a budget, right? You make money and you spend it. If you don't make money, you can't spend it. So you either have to make more money or spend less.
So what kind of impact is this having? You have, where is the money that's being cut coming from? Is it across the board or is it certain departments?
Well, when we presented the budget to the legislature back in December, we used an equivalent of what would be 3 days a month of a furlough. And the dollar equivalent to that is what we told the departments to build their budget with that much less. Now, recognizing that's the process we go through. We present, the legislature either agrees with us or not. If they don't, then they have to make up, what they don't cut as far as what we've proposed, then they need to find the money for it, or other means to keep in some programs that perhaps we propose to cut. It's all this kind of give and take, I guess, during the process.
So when we talk about finding the money, usually that means tax hikes or special fees or raids of funds.
Right.
Right. So what is the governor's position on that?
Or cutting more from another department.
Oh, okay, cutting more, right.
We can, when you look at the budget right now, and we can look at, again, we have a lot of small departments compared to the large Department of Education. We could probably cut, I think it's 13 of our operating departments because they're so small, to make up $1 billion. So you can see where the bulk of the money is. It's in the large departments of education, health, and human services.
Those are 3 different departments, right?